Alright, now we're ready to install the oil pump. Now we're going to install a high volume oil pump in this particular engine. This engine's going to have a deep sump oil pan which will have extra oil capacity, and being that it's a high performance engine and running at high RPMs, we want it to have the maximum oil pressure and lubrication system we can put. So this oil pump here pumps about 25% more capacity than a stock oil pump will. Now before we install this oil pump, we're going to prime the oil pump with oil. As you can hear, it's just bone dry. They don't put any oil in these when they build them. Maybe a light squirt of WD-40 or something like that, but that's all. So we're going to oil prime that. Then also in my hands I got a example of two different kinds of oil pump drive shafts. The stock one here is just a plain drive shaft which comes with a little plastic neoprene style bushing that pops on the end of that. That actually mates up to the end of your, which is fine just for your everyday passenger car. But since we're building a performance engine here, we're going to go ahead and use this drive shaft here that actually has a steel barrel sleeve on there that can't break and will hold directly tight. All right, on this oil pump, we won't have to worry about any problems with that breaking, because if this plastic breaks, you're not going to have any oil pressure. This thing could fly out, could damage your distributor or your block or who knows what. But anyways, I always recommend using one of these. It's a cheap investment, probably costs you about $10. It's a cheap upgrade and do you a whole lot of good. So we're going to go ahead and use that. And another good thing about this, it just slides on. You don't have to force it on. This plastic one, you pretty much have to force it on, and that could crack it just installing it itself. So we're going to go ahead and oil prime this pump. And I usually use the same thing I used to assemble this engine, is my STP oil treatment and motor oil mixture here, and we'll just pour some right in the oil pump hole, right where the gears are in there. And you don't have to fill the pump all the way up. You just need to put enough in there to really coat up these gears, and it'll make an airtight seal, so when we oil prime the engine, it'll get suction right off the get-go. So you can feel it when you turn it. It's all smooth and quiet now. You can actually hear that little oil sound inside. That's all there is to that. So we're going to go ahead and set this on. I like to hold this on the pump, turn the pump into the position where it's going to be installed, slide that shaft straight down in the hole of the block. And it's okay if it falls, it's not going to go anywhere. That big ring will hold it in. So now that we've got this set on here, this particular engine, we're going to have an oil pan baffle which prevents oil from splashing all around everywhere and keeps that oil in the bottom of the oil pan sump where it belongs. It's going to keep the oil down here instead of splashing it around up above. So we're going to go ahead and install that next. It takes 4 regular standard bolts and the oil pump bolt. We're going to go ahead and put the oil pump bolt in first. Now the oil pump bolt looks exactly like one of the cylinder head bolts, and it's important to keep this separate during your tear down and put it in a baggie or something and mark it oil pump bolt, because it is a special length. If you put a bolt too short in here, you're going to strip out the threads in the main bearing, and if you put a bolt that's too long in here, you're going to push right against the main bearing itself and put pressure against the crankshaft, which will prevent the crankshaft from spinning and destroy the bearing and the crankshaft. So you want to make sure you put the right bolt in here. We're going to go ahead and put just one little drop of Loctite on this pump, on this bolt. I'm going to go ahead and put one little drop of Loctite on the tip of this bolt threads. You don't need to put a lot, just a little bit. That'll prevent it from vibrating and falling out. Go ahead and start the bolt in. I always try to start everything by hand. That's the best practice. You won't strip any threads that way. This bolt takes a 5/8 socket. Go ahead and tighten that down. Just have it very snug. It's not really super tight. Make sure that. Now this particular bolt I usually torque to 45 pounds. Even though it's a bigger bolt, there's no need to tighten it tighter than that. That's it, 45 pounds. It ain't going nowhere. Next we're going to put our oil pump, sump, pickup tube and screen on here. Alright, now that we've tightened down the oil pump and the 4 bolts that hold the oil pan baffle on, I installed Loctite on all 5 of these bolts and torqued them all down to 45 pounds, so they're going to stay put. Next we're going to go ahead and install our oil pump, pickup tube and screen. This is different than your stock one. Your stock one will be round and have a little finer screen on it than that, but this is a high performance sump and screen. Now this particular one has an extra long depth reach. It goes up pretty far for this large oil pan we're going to use, and also has an accessory bracket that actually bolts to one of the oil pump bolts. The stock one you're going to use is just going to go right in the hole, and you're going to tap it in using the same method I'm going to use to put this one on. Pretty much try to get it started best you can by hand.